Well, here we are, Thoughts from the Office, Redneck's Pride Outdoors. Here it is, June 26th, and we are in the, what I call the starting point of predation calls coming in, damage complaints with foxes and coyotes. What's happening now is the foxes, or the young fox, are running with their adults. They're learning how to navigate, how to survive, how to find things, they're learning how to start to kill things. The coyote pups, in about another week or two, will be to the size that they're going to really starting to learn how to kill. Start to learn how to kill. I didn't say proficient. I said, well, start to. And with those calls coming in to the ACP Wildlife Control Services, my company, the demand for knowing what to do is high. The demand for seeing the situation you're in is high. There's ADC work, there's wildlife control work, and in my opinion, if you will, they're two different ball games. They're two different jobs. I much prefer ADC work. ADC work would be your larger scale predator work, your predator work where they're coming in and they're killing livestock. They're doing damage at that point, and it's, to me, it's much more enjoyable. I hate to say it that way. And the reason it's more enjoyable is I don't have to concentrate on the one as much. I got to solve the problem, okay, and I've got to read the problem. I've got to see, are they there to kill livestock because, cattle, sheep, something like that? Or are they there to learn to kill? Or are they there in the wildlife control industry, usually somebody's chicken coop, duck pen, pig pen, to where the wildlife control, it's going to be one, maybe two, that's doing the damage. Even though there's a bunch of them around, a bunch of fox, a bunch of coyotes around, there's usually only one or two doing the damage. So in wildlife control, I've got to be a little bit more one-minded, all right? And I've got to understand the job a little bit more in wildlife control. Also in wildlife control, I'm usually dealing with liabilities like neighborhoods, people's dogs, neighbors being nosy, neighbors being downright obnoxious because they don't want anything to happen to that fox or that coyote. So that's the two jobs that I'll be dealing with June, July mainly. And ADC, I don't get a lot of ADC because we don't have a lot of big ranchers. We don't have a lot of, we have sheep farmers and all that, but we don't have a lot of ADC type work where I can just go out and it's a nicer. I got to solve the problem. Don't get me wrong, but it's more trapping oriented for me. I don't know if I'm making myself clear or not, but anyway, I would love to be down in Texas or down south on those AD I can go in, just start catching coyotes, just start catching fox or whatever that problem is, bobcats. But I'm always asked here lately, what's my preferred tool here in New Jersey? And my preferred tool is the Collarum for animal damage, wildlife damage, human predator conflicts. It's always the Collarum. I'm more proficient with the Collarum in those liability type situations. I can figure things out and put in one or two Collarums, targeting the one, where with the other tools like the cable restraints that we have, I've got to cover the trails and the avenues, and that is not as enjoyable work as it is with the Collarum. Now, I can use the one set that I have a lot. I do use it a lot, and that's the scent post. That's with a cable restraint or snare, and that works quite well. But my preferred tool is the Collarum. Now, the reason I'm saying this with the Collarum is a lot of folks have negative feeling about the Collarum, and with all, it's right that they have it, because the Collarum is one of those tools that is a complete nightmare until you really figure it out. Until you figure that tool out, it is a pain, and you get miss after miss after miss in the wildlife control field. And when you miss in the wildlife control field, that is not a good thing. All right? That's not a good thing. Now, there's two other companies in the state of New Jersey that I know of, right off the top of my head, that I know of, that are very, very proficient with the Collarum. And I'm not going to mention their name because I don't want you going to them. Okay? If you're looking at this video and you got a predator problem, I don't want you calling them. I want you calling me. All right? So I'm not going to mention it. But these two other companies are good. They're good with the Collarum. I know a few other folks in the state that, and I'm going myself in trouble here, would classify themselves as good, but they get more misses than they get catches. And we'll just leave it at that. So the Collarum, if you know what you're doing, it is a great tool. If you have an idea what you're doing, it is a iffy tool. And if you have nothing more than an idea, it's a terrible tool. And I've been using Collarums for as long as they've been out. A long time. All right? And it's taken a long time to figure them things out. And I can't, at the South Jersey Trapping and Snaring School, we go into it, and if more people are asking more questions about it, then I go into more detail. But most folks we just do the basics on it, unless somebody's really wanting to get into it, or if I get requests for personal instructions on the Collarum, then it's going to be one full day of in your face Collarum, right? More than just set it and you don't go on with it. The Collarum also has become a very good tool for me as a fur trapping tool. Now, most people aren't going to understand what I'm saying here that's going to hear this, because you can use foot traps and all that. New Jersey cannot use foot traps. The state I'm in, we cannot use foot traps. We can only use cable restraints. And that is where, especially for the fox and the coyotes that are running those field edges and running those open areas, the Collarum has become my preferred tool. The only problem with the Collarum in fur trapping is they're expensive. So if they grow legs, that's a hump of change out of my pocket. But as far as being proficient with it, the Collarum really, really works for me. But then I get a lot of folks that will say to me, no, it doesn't. They buy a Collarum, they spend all that money, they complain about spending that money, and then they put it aside because they're getting more misses than they're getting catches. And I say to them, you got to stick with it. And they'll say, well, no, I'm just going to go back to hanging all my cable restraints. And I'll say, you mean setting your cable restraints? And they'll say, yeah. Enough said on that one. So what is it about the Collarum that makes it such a great tool but so difficult? And that's really a simple answer, but it's a hard solution. And the simple answer is, the more you know your animal behavior-wise, the more you understand where to put the Collarum. And the more you understand where to put the Collarum, the faster and more consistent catches you make with it. Now I'm gonna say this real quick. The Collarum was designed for damage work, inside or along with urban, suburban wildlife control. And that's a very important thing to remember. And most folks do not understand why I'm saying that. The Collarum is a much, much better tool in around people and yards and such than it is out in the back 40 in ADC work or in fur trapping. I didn't say it was not a good tool out there. I said it's a better tool inside people country for the average person. And it's simply because of this. There's certain things that a critter, fox, coyote, that's around people causing damage in yards, chicken pens, duck pens, attacking the dog, what have you. There's things that's going to be a little bit different, if you will, with that canine than the canine that's in the back 40 that comes in very limited contact with people, and when they do come in contact with people, it's usually negative. All right, now that's the first thing, and that is the thing that I constantly have got to keep in my brain going when I'm using it in damage or I'm using it in the back 40. I have got to keep that in mind. In other words, in my damage work, I find it's a little bit easier for me to make consistent catches with the Collarum than it is for me to just set it the same way in the back 40 and have consistent results. And there's a couple reasons for that. Number one, and not in any order, not in importance, but just as it's coming to my head as I'm talking about it. Number one, human odor. Human odor in people country is everywhere. Human odor in people country is nonstop. Human odor in people country is as broad as it is deep. There are all kinds of people smells, all kinds of people that's smelling. There's all kinds of time, what I call time lapses or scent pulls. Everywhere that critter is going at night through your yards and what have you, they're smelling where people were walking, they're smelling where people were sitting, they're smelling where people was standing, they're smelling where people was doing other things unimaginable. They're smelling where people maybe went to the bathroom. They're smelling where people threw food out. They're smelling where people felt anxious. They're smelling where people felt calm. In your back 40, they're used to smelling people moving. You think about it, when they smell somebody is moving through. That's why I think a lot of times in the fall, in high pressure small game areas, you see the coyotes really react differently, start reacting differently to human odor, because that's where you start seeing people moving through fast hunting. But then they're also stopping and standing. They're also doing other things. And that coyote is picking up on those differences. Available food in a wildlife control situation in people country, the food is abundant. The food is at whatever part of the smorgasbord they want at that particular moment. In the back 40, even when food is prevalent, even when food is great, even when food is high on the level of getting, it's still not as good as food inside the urban area or suburban area or people area. So therefore, I believe the coyotes aren't ever super hungry, but they are more in tune to snacking or picking up tidbits that appeal to them. Time. What do I mean by time? Time to the coyote or fox in the back 40 is a different thing than time in people areas. In the back 40, the coyote or the fox actually has more time. Time is, they have time to think things through if they think. They have time to evaluate. They have time to smell. They have time to investigate. They have time to just watch. If you're a predator hunter, you've seen that coyote come out, just sit down and watch, looking at the sound. In people areas, time is shorter. The food is more, the curiosity is more, but the time to investigate is shorter. The time to grab that snack, that food, that morsel, is shorter. They don't come up and smell it and ponder it and stand 2 feet away looking at it. It's they come up from 2 feet, they make their decision, and they grab it or they get out quick. One of the two. They're not hanging around is what we see for the most part. I'm not saying they don't ever hang around. I'm just saying that for the most part, they don't hang around. And when you have an introduced something like food placed or curiosity placed and an intense human odor pool, that canine is going to make a quick move or a quick depart. One of the two. They don't waste time as a rule. So those things right there are major differences between back 40 and people places. Now, when you get into what I call the cool-off period, or every fur trapper knows the word cool-off period. All right, that cool-off period tends to be longer, not all the time, okay, but tends to be longer in the back 40 than the cool-off period in people areas. And it's obvious. I mean, it's obvious why. Human odors everywhere. Everything's changing so quickly. Human odor isn't the negative impact on the coyote or fox in people areas that it can be the negative impact on a coyote or a fox in the back 40. And that's probably the biggest problem most folks have when they're using a collarum is the time. I'm constantly saying they're not hitting it. And I say, you got a camera on it? And they'll say, yeah. I say, are they coming to it? And they say, yeah. I say, what are they doing? They're standing there looking at it. I need to change the bait. No, you don't. Well, what do I need to do? Nothing. What do you mean nothing? Changing the bait's only going to add more time to your cool-off. The best thing you can do in the back 40 when that is happening and the animal is coming, standing 2 feet away, that's better than 6 feet, by the way, but 2 feet away, with looking on the camera and you see it just looking at it, it's eventually going to commit. You just got to find that cool-off period for that animal, and that could be 7 to 10 days, people. It could be. And that 7 to 10 days in the back 40 has a lot of reasons why. Obviously human odor, but I think the human odor is the least of it all. I think most people are trying to make that animal do something it hasn't been doing. They're trying to make that animal do something that it doesn't feel comfortable doing. It's trying to make that animal approach or go into a spot that it doesn't feel comfortable doing. Because the collarum, you need to really guide the fox more. You got to guide that fox more than you got to guide the coyote. The coyote, ironically, is easier to guide in than a fox. A red fox has a tendency to want to come in on the sides. The gray fox has a tendency to want to come in on the back. So grays and reds, me personally, I will set harder and tighter. My son and I was talking about that actually this morning, about how the differences between set for coyotes set for fox, set for combination coyote and fox, is. Now, my son is really, really understanding the collarum, which I'm proud of. I'm proud of that, because a lot of people, it's hard to understand it. To see what I'm talking about. And the only way you see what I'm talking about is you pay your dues. And my dues was paid for 10 plus years. Okay, of me cussing at this trap. Tim Julian was still alive at that point. I was calling him once a week, and he was laughing his butt off at me. But you know, my pride wouldn't let me not figure this thing out. And I'll be honest with you, what I did, I just prayed, God, give me some understanding of this thing. Let me understand how this thing works, because this I know it works, but I got to make this work consistent. And it's the little things. It's the little things. So the more you, for coyote, the more you guide, the more you block, the more you try to make it do what you want it to do, the longer the cool-off period is going to be. In the back 40 we're talking about. Trapping, fur trapping, ADC work at back 40. So you've got to learn to pick the spot that you can guide it without it realizing it's being guided. Foot trappers do it all the time. A pebble here, or a clod of dirt there, a tuft of grass there. That very little stuff. How far your guiding comes out. Does it come out just a little bit, or does it come way out that you're trying to funnel the animal into your collar? Because if he comes in on a side, you're going to miss him. You need him straight in. You need that critter coming straight in. You need him coming straight in. Grab it and pull so that comes right over his head. Fox or coyote. Can't have him on a corner. Can't have him on a corner. So you got to learn to pick your spots. You got to learn to pick your spots for the collar. How did I learn that? Grab sticks. What I learned real quick was this. There were spots that I would put a grab stick in, and it would take 2 weeks for that coyote to finally commit, grab that stick, and take off with it. There was other places that I could put the grab stick in, and he'd come in first, second, and third night. And I was bewildered for a long, long time on that. And I can't explain to you what that is. I can't. I've tried to put into words, seeing that it's like an experienced foot trapper and a real experienced foot trapper. They know the same things. It's just the real experienced foot trapper knows it differently. It's probably not making sense to most of you. So how do you learn that? The grab sticks. You get out there this time of year, now. Josie, I ain't going to do that. You don't have to. You ain't gotta. You ain't gonna learn to collar them either. Because the more you try to learn to collar them by catching, the more you're going to screw yourself up. And that's what I had to figure that out. I had to finally stop trying to learn the collarum, how to catch by catching. And I had to learn the collarum by animal behavior and body position. I know that's not making sense to a lot of people, but it's the absolute truth. It wasn't until I stopped trying to catch them with a collarum and I just started to get them to the grab stick in the body position that I needed them to be. And that's the spot. And I can't say it any differently. It is the spot, especially for coyotes. They want to be able to see all the way around. And if they can't, it could be really, really thick in the back sometimes. It can be really thick in the back, but if they can see from side to side, and they still feel comfortable to taking their head and just getting up close to that really thick stuff in the back because they can still see left and right, they will commit faster than if they can't see left, right, or back. Foxes will scoot through that doggone crap. Foxes are a little bit different, but even at that, I try not to draw them in too far, which everybody tries to do. Everybody tries to draw them in too far because they want to over-guide. In urban wildlife control, and people company areas, it's easier on me because I can push the limits on them a little bit better. Their cool-off time is not as long. A lot of times it's at night, especially if I've pre-baited or done something like that. Okay, and that's the key to understanding the two differences. Now I'm bouncing around and I'm teaching you old school. I'm just talking, but I'm giving a ton of information here. And I'm saying to myself, man, don't give too much, don't give too much, don't give too much. I ain't giving it all out. I've got to save something for the school. Like I said, I know two companies that are really, really good with this collarum. Where if I got to go against them, I'm going to be up against it. All right, they're good. They're good. When it comes to fur trapping, I know of two fur trappers. I ain't gonna mention their names, but I know of two other fur trappers that are consistent with the collarum. And when I talk to both of them, the thing that stands out more than anything else, it's not the bait. It's not the lure, although bait and lure are important. You got to have a bait that they want to eat, grab. You got to have a lure to make them feel comfortable, curiosity, whatever. And I use three, sometimes four different odors at at each collarum set, depending on what I'm trying to do. I'm going to use a curiosity. I'm going to use a calming. I'm going to use a grab or a taste or a bite or sometimes two grab, taste, bites, and then sometimes a territorial. So I can go as much as 5 odors at a set. But I can push the envelope a little bit in the wildlife control, which I'm glad, because that's where I'm getting the most money for. I can push that envelope, and I can look at the scenario, and I can predict my cool-off period by just talking to the customer on their observations and of what they've seen with the fox or the coyote's behavior. The back 40, I can't. Back 40, I'm blind. So I got to look at the scenario. I got to look at it. Is it a travel route? Is it a hunting area? Am I introducing something that's foreign to them? Do I have to catch their... If I got to catch their attention, this is something that's kind of blew my mind at first. I found that if I've got to catch their attention to bring them to the spot, it will take longer for them to commit to the spot. If I can put it right under their nose, the commitment time frame in the back 40 is a lot shorter. And again, just like anything, whether you're setting a foot trap or dog proof, or maybe not dog proof, but you know, as you're anything like that, your human odor pool is important for your cool off period also. So you want to set your collarum in a spot that they want to be, that they're going to go without hesitation. You want to place it in that spot they're going to be. You want to position it so there's no problem with their going straight in on it where they need to go. You want to present it in such a fashion that it's part of the landscape. It's just part of the deal. Yeah, they know you was there, but there's no problem to it. If you think this video was long, which it was, wait until you see my training seminar for the Collarum. We'll just leave it at that. Hey, give me a like. Give me a subscribe, please. YouTube says I need it. Facebook, I get a lot of likes, but YouTube says I need more likes and subscribes. So help me out a little bit. Talk to y'all later. Redneck's Pride Outdoors, thoughts from the office.